Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future.
All right. We're live. Live on the back porch.
Blake, you're not going anywhere.
Yep. The New Arc podcast. Sans Blake. Well, I guess we'll do a quick intro.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, Winston, now that we've been out here troubleshooting for a while, I'd love to introduce you.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, Winsten Whaley, engineer savant. We've been working together for how many years now since Micropower?
Well, oh man, you're going to make me sound old. 10, 11 years?
I think 11 years. Winston was the number one IP submitter at the last large manufacturing company we worked at. But the most important reason he is here today is a conversation that we had. I was telling him about humanoids and robotics, and because he's a contrarian engineer, he goes, "Yeah, these humanoids are not going to work." I'm like, well, "Why do you think humanoids are not going to work?" Here's lots of reasons why they are. He goes, "They don't have tails."
Well, they don't have dynamic stability was the primary issue that I was watching with them. Now they're using gyroscopes and all kinds of stuff, but at the end of the day, when you've got dynamic conditions that you're walking through loose rubble or whatever else, there's always going to be challenges about the reaction time versus anticipation versus whatever else. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I was coming at from it. Like there's the human body has millions, if not billions, of sensors scattered throughout it that allow us to adapt and pathways in the brain that automatically react to things in millisecond time. So um, recreating that as a on a non-biological scale is gonna be difficult, of course. And I get passionate about things, so when it's difficult, it's impossible. But that's not necessarily the truth. It's just the truth right now. So
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would have that conversation and they would come back the next day and nothing would happen. But you actually went home and started sketching out what it would take to create a robotic tail, and you just got word back from the patent office.
yeah. So I got my patent approved. I paid the fee. I'm kind of in that waiting period to have it posted. But I kind of went home and, as always, like I say things and I say them, very confidently. But then I thought about it and I was like, maybe there is a mechanical solution to some of the issues. And I started doing research. And one of the things that popped up was cheetahs. And I think you kind of wanted to talk about those or whatever. And
Yep.
I think I came back and I talked to you about it. But like the cheetah has it's a quadruped, of course, but it has some unique dynamics in how it uses its tail to navigate and to balance. And that kind of dynamic stability, I think, is something that could propel robotics for use in like non-standard use cases where the floor is in imperfect condition, or you're on a boat that's getting pitched at sea or whatever else. And so kind of looked at the problem. I looked at some of the solutions that were available for it, and I just kind of started tinkering. And once my mind gets set on something, it kind of takes off. So of course, my wife was irritated because I spent like 20 hours or so modeling this contraption with wheel within a wheel, and a whole bunch of rollers and stuff, using kind of piggybacking off existing technologies to create something new. And I kind of told Joel about it, but I didn't want to share it because it's my meal ticket.
Hey, millions of dollars.
No, probably not. But it was something that I was excited about, and I really, I don't know, I have a thing about like the IP, the cloud of having that IP is meaningful to me. And I know that seems kind of shallow and short sighted or whatever, but like to actually create something new is kind of a unique experience, and to have it recognized at that kind of level is empowering to me as an individual, and kind of I guess grants a little bit of meaning to some of the struggles that I've had in my career and stuff like that. So it was a really good process to go through and to see and to understand, and I look forward to continue to develop that further and try to see if it can be useful in any way to humanity as a whole.
Right on.
What's with this podcast and cheetahs?
I know this is the second cheetah uh, discussion.
I mean, they're fast and they're yellow. It's like a Lamborghini, you know. I don't know.
They are cool.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean, you said that it was the cheetah, but obviously you just laid out what was the stuck out to you. But can you share any more about that? I really am interested of
About the cheetah
what
itself, or
cheetahs specifically. Why?
so I don't know. It's all throughout the animal kingdom. It's actually super unique that we're bipedal organisms without a tail, and that was one of our evolutionary advancements that allowed us to persistence hunt. Actually, we were never faster than the animals we would encounter. We were, never stronger many of the times than they were. But like we could just run until their hearts gave out because we were super efficient. And so that mode of transportation was really good for us. But it's an anomaly within the animal kingdom. If you look around, any animal that is primarily bipedal has some kind of tail to offset its balance. And so um, what what we're trying to do is create an analog of a human because the entire world is built around humans. And me and Joel had an argument actually. We were talking about integrating robotics because Joel opened his mouth and got our division roped into figuring out how to do that in a 30-year-old, you know, facility with no walking space and all kinds of other issues. And I told him, I
Mhm.
said, the factory's built around humans. I said, so you can't cram a robot in there that isn't human shaped because it won't be able to navigate and it won't be able to whatever else. You have to kind of structure for the current solutions. You have to structure the environment around the robot, which obviously isn't feasible for if you're looking at let's say a multi-billion-dollar manufacturing facility that's already been built. You can't just restructure it. You can't halt production even. Like the volume of money that goes through some of these plants was kind of baffling to me because my background's in high mix, low volume, and stuff like that. So it was kind of this interesting thought experiment to like, well, how do we do this? Like, well, the obvious solution is, well, if the robot looks like a human, and if the robot fits in the same places as a human, and if the robot can navigate the same obstacles like stairs and doors and elevators and whatever else is a human,
Mhm.
then you have this now powerful, capable, automated tool that's not a human that can do things that are maybe hazardous for humans, that can do things that are maybe repetitive and not fulfilling for humans, that can do tasks that are uh, you know really below humans, like monitoring oil levels in a machine. Um, and so like I see the value absolutely in humanoid robotics, but from a I guess you said I'm contrarian, but like
In
the
all the best ways.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I have an analogy that I think you'll like about that,
Yep.
but just if we can figure out how to do that, it really empowers a lot of things. And so I do see the value in it. I just, I also see the challenges.
Mhm.
And Joel, it will, you know, I like you, Joel.
Thank you.
I think you know that by this point.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Right back to
Um,
you, buddy.
but
I'm still
you are,
undecided.
yeah, yeah, he's like you're like the golden retriever to my bloodhound. All right, like you're hyper, you're everywhere, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go again.
Yep. I'll
And
always get everyone in trouble for sure.
yeah, 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 and and I always step up. So I need people like you in my life for sure, and I'm thankful for that.
Complacency.
Huh?
Complacency.
It's not complacency. I mean, we were solving other problems at the time.
Inspiration.
If that's what you want to call adding more to a plate full of food, yeah. But yeah, just that I guess circling back to the cheetah thing is they are a cool animal and they're I guess watching Animal Planet as a kid they would talk about that as like one of the defining characteristics of its locomotion was the tail is actually hyper important. It's like the same length as the body or whatever because they actually use that weight to be able to change directions. You're talking about a biological life form running at 70 miles an hour. That's highway speeds. and it's got to change direction, and it's still not good at it, but like there's something there to solve the issue that we're having, and it just kind of devolved from there. And I it's like, well, it's a series of spherical joints linked together. It's like, well, what about the spherical joints that we have available? Well, they're heavy and they're clunky, and if you overload them, then the linear actuators get damaged, or the teeth rip off of them in the case of the abenix joint, or whatever else. And so this experiment kind of started in my brain, and then I got that itch, and I just had to hammer it out. And once I had it, I realized this is something new. And then my personality steps in and says, well, if it's something new, then you need to get it recognized. And I tried to take the thing to go do that, and I succeeded, is what it seems like. And I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's going to land. It was just like a kind of a passionate drive to develop the thing, and I'm happy that I did. It's a unique experience. Joel has a couple of patents as well, I think. Um, and it is. It's just something. It's something that not a lot of people can say, but it's also just something that not a lot of people have gotten to experience. So I'm really happy for it, and I'm happy that Joel throws me into the frying pan whenever he gets the chance, because even this podcast is kind of stepping out on a limb for me. So um, we'll see how it turns out.
Absolutely. Oh, always.
Indeed.
Yeah. So our podcast is focused on robotics and entertainment,
Yes.
and I really thought that the tail actually is a fantastic creature addition. So what makes a good tail?
I mean, flexibility, control. So there's things, obviously, like you have to have the mechanical ability to make the movements that you want. You have to be able to make them realistic and fluid, and y'all were kind of talking about the uncanny valley and being able to bridge that, but that even extends to like suspended disbelief, right?
Hmm.
The more you can make it believable, the easier it is for people to cross that bridge. So you make a brontosaurus neck. If it's jumpy and twitchy, and it doesn't, if the arc isn't changing and it's just kind of shifting in a single dimension, it's translating instead of actually changing direction or
Mm.
changing shape. Um, People kind of recognize that, and it's another hiccup to cross that barrier. And Joel had talked about, he had I guess, kind of a mini passion for animatronics,
Mm.
and so he got excited when I told him, "Yeah, I got this spherical joint. I got a box of scraps in my garage, $600 worth of stuff, including the printer to make it, and I'm gonna make one." Like, so to be able to build something that is like robust and cheap and light and doesn't require precision manufacturing is something that I hope would be useful, maybe to this particular industry, but just also other places as well, when it comes to making robots accessible for other people, or just mechanical objects in general. There may be. I'm always excited to, like, if I can get it to a point where other people can use it, that you know somebody else is going to take this as the foundation to build something else. Like, what's that going to look like? And that's kind of exciting too, because you're like, hey, my fingerprints are still in that thing, but it's something completely different.
Mm. Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think there is a lot of value in mechanical advancements, but there's always another side to the coin. And I think we're coming a long way in sensors and processing, in just the control systems that are available. So there's a whole it's a multidisciplinary endeavor, and uh, it is coming along much faster. Like, we had that conversation not that long ago, and I feel like the technology has come a long way in the 2 years, 3 years since we had that talk.
Yep.
Um, Further than I expected it to in a decade. And there's such a hunger for it, and there's such a an understood need for it, that there's people really putting resources into it, and bright minds being attracted to it. And so it's just an interesting time to be a part of it, even though I'm kind of on the outside. Um, it's just it's really cool to see, I guess, something that I thought would never take off taking off. So
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's very interesting. I obviously, Joel, where we kind of been straying away from what you saying, the uncanny valley and all that.
Mhm.
But yeah, embracing animals for this. But I'm I'm not sure. But obviously, the differences in center of mass and things from a robot to a biological entity. But I don't know of a tail component that's actually been functional in that sense. My guess is it's always just been more aesthetic than anything. Yeah, we have an animal here. It's got a tail, so we'll add it and it wiggles around.
Yep.
But it's not actually there to counterbalance and
Mm.
have the animal move around.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
My suspicion.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the cool things about this conversation that we had was Winston was talking about when the cheetah takes a sharp turn, the whole tail doesn't move; it'll flick just the tip. Just the slightest amount of movement. In traditional like animatronics or traditional like tail architecture in like robotics have been cable driven. If you think about rods and guides down a tail, you could pull it, but you basically have maybe those four cables pulling it up, down, side to side. But having that, especially now when you can have multiple segments all controlling and moving at their own pace and movement. That was very hard to do and control 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But now when you have a multi-thread control over that, and then you can also have feedback and label like this is a tail looking happy, this is a tail looking sad, and like different emotions. You can actually teach that into the system like as an emotional, like a nonverbal, or as a function in there. So I think having this non-cable driven segmented and individual control opportunity is actually pretty cool on the time scale we're at right now, um, because of the emotional drive, the physical like feedback mechanisms we have right now, um, etc. Like we need more and more abilities now, and that's where this segmented motor control
Yeah. Well,
opportunity
and
happens.
I will say in terms of like the tail as a functional component, I've also come a long way because I left the previous company. I went to a company that worked with like space equipment, and there was a significant amount that I learned about CMGs and reaction wheels and how those are used to create kind of dynamic stability. But those have their limitations as well, and they're heavy systems, and they can be power hungry systems, um, depending on how much you need to control. And so it goes back to the idea of like it could be an augmentation for existing technologies, or it could
Yep.
be something completely new. Like on your front, like maybe it has less of a function, but it less of a function mechanically, but it's more of like it allows us to do something with a humanoid robotic or an animatronic robotic that we couldn't before, where we had to green
Yep.
screen it, or we had to maybe it's even in the factory context. Like this is
Yep.
another appendage now that can manipulate things or hold items or interact with control systems while the other appendages are in use. So, um, but at the same time, it's not necessarily in the way, and it might even have some added benefits of, you know, helping this thing navigate its daily cycle.
Yeah.
Mm.
And just like a Segway, is auto balancing on two wheels. The tail could have a lot of intelligence across it to auto balance
Yeah.
and react
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
and that
environment
that's
now.
where I was going back to, like, the amount of sensors and the quality of the sensors. Y'all talked to was it Yavad that was
Yeah,
talking about
Javon, yeah.
um, the quality of sensors is greatly improving, and they're able to
Mm,
integrate more of them with the processing power that we have available, and so that's come a long way, and then these guys have been working with this stuff for so long that the control systems are super good.
hmm
And so, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily not feasible within the next few years that somebody would be able to control like a center of mass shifting system like that on purpose. And it's like I said, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, take this thing that I made, I can take it so far, but
hmm
you guys have this other experience that stacks up around mine and like make something new out of it. And so I'm looking forward to see if something like that happens. I'm looking forward to see the other advancements as people just build onto each other's work in that field. I think it'll be pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think in Core, we've talked quite a lot about like, at least in the immersive experience side and entertainment side, where the creature robotics is probably one of the very first
Mhm.
entry points for robotics and immersive experiences. How important do you think the tail is for creatures?
Yeah, that sells other.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely maybe that alien or
Mhm.
yeah, an actual. When I say alien, I mean it's the '70s alien, but yeah, it had a big sweeping tail.
Yeah.
But yeah, the creature, especially if it's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
So even trying to replicate a cheetah, that's another step in difficulty.
Yes.
We know what cheetahs look like and how they act, but the creature with a tail and so long as it actually reacts in a sense of how we're used to physics in general.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, the creature, the tail sells it for sure.
Yeah.
Is that so? With the tail, um, is this something that you would? Obviously, I'm sure it's use case, but um, is this something that you would incorporate with saying some other redundancy aspect of balance,
Oh yeah,
gyroscope, whatever,
absolutely.
whatever.
I think there is always value to having like multiple systems with aligned goals. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same goal. So maybe, you know, maybe the tail is an auxiliary to the CMG that allows it to add specific impulse for like, high change of direction activities, or just and I don't know the right words for this, but like there could be kinematic situations where it's like this is occurring and the CMG can't cope with this specific like high amplitude input. So we have this other system that maybe is used for other things most of the time, but it's also available as an auxiliary to augment that.
Mhm.
And while a tail was kind of the primary goal of the development, I realized that it had value just as a spherical joint as well. And so it was more like the almost working backwards, like, well, it needs to do this, and it's at its core, it's this. And so, I think there's value. I think there's value in continuing to just kind of pursue that rabbit trail, and I would encourage anybody that's developing anything, not to stop at like the first step, but also just like look at the system holistically, look at the work other people have done. Because like when I told Joel that I was skeptical, I didn't know much about CMGs. I knew they existed for like stabilizing boats, and roughly that they were used for positioning spacecraft in space. But I didn't realize like the amount of actual stability they were able to add to certain systems like that. And so just like being there to challenge those things,
Mhm.
but also not just stopping at the challenge, and like kind of digging into that challenge and using it as kind of a treasure map to see the things that you're missing. And so yes, I think the tail as an auxiliary system would be great for balancing. It has the added benefit of maybe not being as good at that particular task as a CMG, because that's specifically what those are for. But it's also now an additional appendage, which means it looks different if you want to use it for looks aesthetically. But it can also deliver a payload. It can also have tools and sensors and whatever else to scan the environment around it that aren't constrained to the humanoid shape, or whatever shape your robot is. We Joel and I were joking that everything eventually finds its way to the military. Well, now you're talking about a robot that can present a weapon around a wall with nothing exposed but the weapon itself, and that's terrifying to think about. But there's all these use cases that come from having this extra appendage, and it just so happens that it can also be applied to another issue that we're having in non atypical environments, which is balance.
Yeah. And also, I mean, Scorpion's a cool name for a robot weapon.
I mean, we're from Texas. We don't like them that much.
Is xenomorph, by the way, that I was trying to think of. But yeah.
Yeah, I need to be respectful for the aliens. Um, it- it's just neat. Yeah, we last podcast we had, it was with Dr. Louis Sintez, and it ended with that we want to have not just permission for people to join in robotics in general, but an invitation. And I think this conversation is really timely on the heels of that podcast, because you're not a roboticist.
No, no, I am as conventional manufacturer as they come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've actually seen you speak in G code. You're right in front of a CNC, and you're typing while talking to me into the CNC and moving the tooling around. And I was like, that's when I knew that you were a robot.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on it earlier, but like I said, like coming to the podcast is kind of stepping out on a limb with me because I don't always connect with people too well. But machines always do what you tell them to. Unfortunately, sometimes you tell them to go where they're not supposed to at an alarming rate.
Yep.
Um, and so s- in my career, I did that a couple of times,
Mm,
and I'm doing it less now. And that's what builds a better manufacturer. So
that's true. That philosophy in autonomous robotics doesn't really play very well. I wish it did.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
Start small, so to speak.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
aim small, miss small. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I'm excited to see your spherical joint make it to market. I'm excited to see people integrated in there. And every single time I get in a Slitterbahn and I go through the jungle themed tube, I'm like, we need a boa constrictor tail, moving back and forth here. And I know a guy who's gonna make it happen.
Yep, yep. You were all on that. As soon as I told him about it, he had like 9 use cases for it. He was super stoked about it, and I was like, I gotta build the thing first. I gotta see how it works. I gotta optimize it a little bit and at least get it presentable. But Joel, he's on it, man. I mean, he's a team building, product selling. He's a monster. I don't know how he does it.
It's just a monster. What he didn't know is I was in my garage like the week after, and I had like edging, like the black plastic garden edging. I had shaved it down into a tail form. I don't know if I showed you that. And I had put a cable driven system, and I'm like doing all these like motions and tails, and I'm like, oh man, Winston was right. It's all about the tail. And who knows? Humanoid robots are going to be so much more fun with tails.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's another thing though too is it's just going to be kind of strange to see initially. And I don't know, you have more experience with launching robots that are in new environments or whatever. So uh, the tail could be off-putting to some people. So its usefulness definitely has to, I guess, overcome its alienness.
But it's such a, I don't know. I mean, you guys being engineer minded, just the simplicity of it, the pragmatic aspect. Your point of if a humanoid is navigating the environment, a tail following behind us would not interfere with anything.
Not
Yes.
typically, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's obviously going to be some areas where the extra bulk is going to be
Sure.
an issue, but
Mhm.
You need to sit down or squat or crawl through a hole or
well, I
something.
mean, it could lean on the tail like a kangaroo or something.
Yeah.
If anything, it runs out of batteries. It's easier for it to prop itself up.
Mhm. I mean, another cool thing about the tail conventionally is you're like, that's not that's not a human. I'm okay with this. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah. So I mean,
Oh,
you
you think it pushes it to the opposite side of the uncanny valley?
that, and it's like it's not a human. It's not replacing me.
Oh, I see. I
Right.
see. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's a tool and not an analog, like a direct analog.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people look at a human robot and like, oh, it's gonna take my job, and like, have you even seen it? How slow that thing is? Have you seen what the payload is on the arms? It barely can pick up anything.
Yeah.
So, but you throw a tail on there, like, nah, that's not a human. I mean, some of these things actually are very helpful. Naming robots, you know, uh, just the way it looks. Like if you paint the robot black and you have red eyes, probably not something you want to put in manufacturing. Throw a tail on it, you can put it anywhere.
We'll see. I remain the skeptic on that
I'm
one.
selling it,
Yeah,
man. I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
sell your tail.
You're
But
trying you're trying to what now?
I'm selling your tail before it's.
Move on.
Yeah, if the economy goes really far down, it's
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah. Yeah, but I think you invited me here to talk about the manufacturability in regards to robotics. Was that one of the points?
Yeah, yeah. What have you learned in your endeavors of building, a mechatronic, electromechanical system?
Um, I mean, it was more complex than initially I kind of set out to do.
Yep.
Even though I did my best to, use off the shelf parts and you know, reduce distinct parts. I
Yep.
still have a lot of individual parts, but I like try to reuse geometry and things like
Yeah.
that. And it was kind of like I said, an interesting evolution, and it took me a long time by my standards, I guess, to draw it up and to really get it to what I had envisioned.
Hmm.
And that goes with just making something new, right? Because I feel like a lot of the time we're able to piggyback on other technologies as manufacturers, anyway. Like, hey, this thing is something that works. This is a technology that's proven. It's high efficiency. It's easy to make. We have the tools to do it because we did this other thing. So let's do it that way. And I think part of what robotics ran into initially and why there was the high cost is everything on the initial humanoid robotics, or I guess even further back, like the initial quadrupeds, was all tailor made, and
Yeah.
the control systems and the ideologies and everything else behind them was brand new. You go in and you talk about the kick test, and they spent probably millions of dollars in hardware and labor developing this robot. And the first thing that happens when it gets put in the field is somebody drop kicks it, and of course it falls over
Yeah.
because who in their right mind would drop kick it? But in their particular use case, it needs to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
And so there's this like this point of data that what didn't exist before, but then these great minds that have developed this one system kind of come together and go, well, how can we make it overcome this issue?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot done on that front, building up with robotics and development. Um, but it's all on like the entrepreneurial and um, I guess the development of new ideas side of things. And it's
Mm.
starting now to reach the point where people are really interested in, okay, like these things are starting to get pretty good. They're starting to get really effective. They're starting to get useful. They're becoming useful.
Yeah.
Now, how do we make them? Um, how do we make them cheap? How do we make them high enough quality at a low enough cost that we can get them into people's homes, like you were talking about, or we can make them plug and play for any location that needs them in industry or whatever else. Um, and I think there is going to be some growing pains with that because we'll get back to my analogy now. Is I think there's kind of two types of people that gravitate towards engineering. You have people that are like Joel, and Joel, I mean this in the best way. Okay,
Thank you.
like I said, Joel's got some salesmanship to him. Joel has a high level of uh, drive and a high level of enthusiasm to bring new things to like by sheer willpower just manifest them in the world. And those people are what I called hammers. Okay. And then there's people like me who are kind of, like I'm driven in different ways, but I'm a little slower moving. I'm not going to jump on the robot bandwagon because there's dynamic stability issues. And, I don't see how you can make a cost effective, and we had this conversation 3 years ago and I'm slowly being proven wrong, and that's okay. That's fine. Um, but I slowly realized that, and I call these people anvils, right? So we have Joel's the hammer and I'm the anvil. Um, and I feel like in industry, because of the personality types, we've celebrated hammers a whole lot,
Mhm.
because these people are moving. There's a lot of action and there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of things going on. And of course, I'm a little bit biased because I'm on the other side of that, and I'm the anvil. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm the anvil, and how many hammers have I seen? And how many hammers have broken against my resolve? And I've been here the whole time, and without me, the hammer can't make shape to anything. He can't actually form it. He's just banging away a sheet of metal with nothing to come against. And there's theological concepts to that too that are sunk in my brain where like men have to come against each other, and people have to come against each other in a constructive manner to make something that's useful and to make something that's valuable. um and so I think part of the issue is we celebrated hammers so much in this particular industry in robotics,
Mhm.
um and we got so far, and now they're realizing that there's 90% of the industry is hammers and there's 10% of the industry that's anvils, and there's an issue, because they really want to accelerate this thing now to where everybody can have it and where it's widely available. And I think it's not less of a skill set thing, and it's more of a personality and a mindset trait type of deal. And of course, like I said, I'm biased, so you need the hammer because without the hammer, the anvil is just a quiet piece of steel, um, and nothing's getting done either. And so, like we had the conversation about Joel came up and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I said, "It's stupid. I hate it." And then I went home and I went, okay, it's kind of stupid. I don't really hate it, I guess. And then the next day was, we're gonna make this work, and we're gonna do something here. And then you know, my mindset was always geared towards, well, it's got to be something I can actually do. And so that was the genesis of that. And I think, um, along the same vein, we have all these people that have created these systems now that are useful and that can be human analogs in dangerous areas or repetitive areas or whatever, and they can fill that role and meet the needs of doing these tasks. And the issue is that, like, how much does a single actuator cost for use in specifically for use in robotics? You know,
That's the main driver for cost of a robot.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
And I think somebody wise told me that it was this guy.
The hammer.
Yeah, the Joel. And so just kind of sitting in that and realizing that it's because they manifested something new, and it has these feedback systems and these control capabilities and things that are baked into it, but also just like the mechanical shape of it was purpose built for a specific thing, a specific task. And maybe not enough regard was given to, hey, how do we make this thing, and how do we make it to where I can stamp it out of sheet metal? How do we make it to where a sweaty dude on a two-axis CNC can make 98% of the features on this thing before I ship it over to a three-axis to put a single other feature in it to make it work? Um, and I part of the issue that I kind of see, especially in the higher end fields like robotics or space, is this reliance on advanced manufacturing techniques like five-axis machining or metal 3D printing, or insert your fad of the week manufacturing thing there. And it's not only become a crutch on the design side, but also the manufacturing side. But I can build a work cell with three machines for the cost that it takes me to buy one five axis, with the added benefit that while my lathe is turning it, the five axis is turning it. But then I take the part off, and the lathe is turning another part while the next machine is machining features.
Yep.
The five axis still has the first part in it, and it's milling the features in as the second operation. And then I shift the parts down the line one more time, and now there's three parts being manufactured for the same capex input expense, as the other machine. So my throughput is much higher, which means my labor costs are lower, and my other overhead costs are lower, and my administrative costs are lower. And I feel like and I guess maybe I'm a primitivist or whatever, but I feel like we've gotten away from like the simplicity aspect of manufacturing things, especially in these industries like robotics.
I
And
totally agree. People
yeah,
complain all the time.
yeah, and I just feel like if we could find a way to get back to that, um, then that cost is going to shoot down, and there's going to be a more grounded approach in the future to how we design things and how we manufacture things. Um, and I think that only comes with building that, I guess, that base of those type of personalities in the company that raise the question, that are the, the conservatively minded, like, wait, do we need, do we really need to 3D print this thing out of stainless steel, or can I make it out of flat bar, with a little bit of imagination, a little bit of work, and it still do what you need it to do? Because now I've increased how quickly I can pump these out, and I've potentially improved the quality of the material strength. You name it. Like, the sky's the limit when you get people asking those kind of questions, and and maybe I'm romanticizing it a little bit, but I think the industry will find those people because it's a necessity for its survival. It's a necessity for its business proposition. Um, I would assume that investors eventually get weary of pouring money into something that doesn't have the tangible returns that have been sold to them.
Mhm.
Um, and I think the only way that happens is with this move into design for manufacturing, and this stabilization of the components that go into robotics. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, that's one of the things that a lot of the Tesla engineers early on knew. Like, they were. It wasn't about shaving, you know, 10, 15 bucks off. It's like, take the 10,000 components and shave off a penny on each one of them. It's like this maniacal like sense to do perfection on the cost. And I think that's something that you have a talent for,
I mean, I uh, I
sensitivity for.
I would say, yeah, probably a sensitive. I have relatively severe imposter syndrome from what I can tell, and so I'm kind of under the impression that, you know I'm just a guy, and I have a particular skill set, and I've learned to apply it because I'm passionate about it.
Yep.
And in my brain, I can't be that alone in the world. There's got to be people that share this passion for making things. There's got to be people that share this passion for solving these kind of logistical problems,
Yep.
and people that have the strength of character to stand up to the mob of hammers and be the anvil, and say, wait, guys, like, yes, this robot's super cool.
Yep.
I'm glad that we have a robot that can swim like Phelps and can dunk like Michael Jordan.
Hmm.
However, we're paying him as much as both of them combined to build each one of them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's a problem. So let's take it back, and let's go to the root of each component, and let's, I guess Tesla's philosophy sounds pretty solid to me. It's like, hey, every single piece on this thing needs to be looked at, and we need to really consider where our costs are going. And I think if the you know if one company starts doing that, it drives that sentiment for all the other companies because they don't want to get left behind. And so that's
Yep.
exciting to see. That's exciting to hear. And I think it's going to cause a wave of little people like me to start showing up in these companies, and hopefully, like this mindset doesn't get in the way of anything. I would hate, and like I kind of rough with Joel when I was like, oh, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's never going to be a deal. Um, but I hope that they have that resolve to go back and to challenge their own maxims and their own ideals, against what they know and what they see, and to learn new things, and to challenge themselves to grow in new things. Because I think it's easy for us to to stagnate, and that's why I do like working with Joel so much, because he's, like I said, he's the hammer. Otherwise,
Mhm.
I'd fall silent. So yeah.
You know, it, this conversation I really wanted to have because it really brings out a heart of a few different things. One, entry level, the kids in school who they look in the world and they look in the Instagram, LinkedIn, they're saying 99.999% of things have already been invented. Those things are already done, and like, I'm just coming into the world to repackage something the same way. And I think that's a fundamental lie. And I think you actually flip that number. 99.99% of things have not been invented.
I mean, yeah, and I guess my perspective would be to challenge that as well, because it's like, just in my lifetime.
Yep.
Like, I grew up and we didn't have as much as many people, but I remember like dad messing with the TV with a magnet because it was a tube.
Right.
And like, you know, VHS and all that kind of stuff. And just the explosion of technology within like my formative years, even like there was a 10-year period of time between like 7 and when I graduated high school where like so much happened. Cell phones exploded, touchscreens happened, social media became a thing. Just the proliferation of devices listening and registering and um like there's so much out there and there's so many pitfalls, right? But there's also
Yep.
just like there's so much potential. And I don't know how to encourage them to take hold of the potential of what already exists to develop something new, because like you said, I feel the same way. I think there's going to be this continued revolution of technology, and I don't see it stagnating anytime soon. As long as we can encourage, like, as long as we can educate and encourage people to invest their passion and their effort into those things and not let them get discouraged by the volume of new information that's out there.
I I'd say what you guys are talking about here, aspects of I'll jump in as devil's advocate. I do agree with you guys. Um, but also what we're doing here, story.
Yes.
It comes back to that. Um, Again, I agree with you guys, but there's so much, at least from the outside looking in, of technological advancement that's occurring, that there's so much of it that gets stagnated, either by government bureaucracy, if that's in the medical field or whatever. And there's so much that happens on a daily basis. New advancements, new awesomeness,
Yeah.
but it's a microchip that's that much smaller, and all those sorts of things. So from a story, the narrative perspective, I mean, we're kind of coming out of the shadow of the industrial revolution.
Right.
Whoa, we have a light bulb. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Or the steam engine, like big, big leaps that are visual. We
Yeah.
went from developing flight to putting man on the moon in 60 some years. Like, like those are big storytelling visuals. That just so how can we overcome that? Do you or do you guys agree with me first off? But
So I mean, this won't be a good example because plane's getting pretty old, but like I think it has to do with the person's perspective of the world. Because for me, like I'm not big on visual art. Like I don't understand the nuances of painting, and I'm not cultured in that way. It's not something that I am passionate about or care all that much about. But I look at the F-22. Okay, that to me, that's a piece of art. And you look at it compared to an F-16 or an F-18, and some people will look at that and they'll say, "Yeah, it's a fighter jet. It's a plane. It's a it's a joint fighter. It has a role. It fulfills it. It does its job." But to me, they're two unique and like easy to discern like advancements off of each other.
mm,
But then I look in other places and like I don't know, I pull out my newest phone with 18 cameras on it and whatever technology, and I still see a Sprint Katana, which was like the knockoff brand of the Razor, way back in the day. Because to me, like that's the thing that I see it as. It's a communication device. It does its job. I had to buy this one because my other one went kaput. Um, uh, and it's got like useful characteristics outside of that, and I use them and I see them. But at the same time, like I think each individual person is going to be drawn to different things, and so I think the issue is finding that thing. And so we talked about like, hey, I'm really good at these particular tasks, and we kind of had this talk before about, um, you know, I've failed at more things in my career than a lot of people will ever even attempt in theirs.
Mhm.
Um, and that failure, it breeds capability, but success breeds passion, right? And so we have to find this balance where we're not shoehorning kids into careers, into roles where they are safe and they're financially secure, just for the sake of that. Like we have to be able to show them that, like, hey, you can have those things, but also, like, if you're willing to fail and if you're willing to dig into these things that are hard and that have more risk to them, then you might become something different from the people around you. And you might be able to discover that love for a different kind of art for you, and have that, like, see those advancements driven by your own hand. Um, and so I think from the outside looking in, like you said, it's kind of hard. It's hard to see, but from the inside looking out, I'm the snobby guy at the art show when they're like, "Yeah, it's a fighter jet." I'm like, "No, that's the F-22. That thing's never been defeated in aerial combat. The thing, like, it's an unstoppable force of pop-up warfare that, like, nobody's ever seen, and it's already like they're already talking about making a new one that's going to make it obsolete." It's like
Yeah.
these guys are driving forward, you know, driving forward, even though, like, the thing that I look at is like, hey, this is art, this is like perfection, this thing is cool. Now they're telling me there's something else coming, and there's still going to be people outside of, like, yeah, it's a jet that our dumb government spent billions of dollars on it. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't understand, it's fast, and like it, the brain inside of it is crazy, and just getting excited about stuff like that. And I think just finding that passion is what drives that perception of stagnation in technology.
Mm. With that, again, just devil's advocate here. Does that? How do you reconcile the F-22 example with your uh, cutting cost aspect? Because again, at least outside looking in,
Yeah,
uh, you know, I'm I'm not a military guy, but that's at least been a lot of the flack. And it
absolutely.
from that perspective, it is just a plane. Who cares if a couple
But
F-15s get shot
so
down?
so I would, yeah, I would like to point out that I called it art, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
like what's one of the most famous periods of history for art? Like, what would you say?
Renaissance
The Renaissance, right? Well, why did the Renaissance occur?
of
The Dark
pain and
Age.
hardship.
Yeah, like 2/3 of the world's population died, and all of a sudden there was a, what did you say, a caloric uh
Deficit.
no, 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 no. Well, all of a sudden there was more calories available because most of the people were dead, but the same amount of farmland had been cultivated,
Right, right.
and now all of a sudden people had time. And so I call the F-22 a piece of art, and maybe that's actually more on the nose than it should be, because art isn't born out of
Pieces.
it's not
Mhm.
it's not born out of necessity to cut costs. It's actually born out of excess, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that might be, like, more profound than I even realized, but uh, I th- I think I think I think it doesn't jive because it is a different field and it's a different mindset, and it's, we need absolute superiority because it's securing our future, and it's insert whatever slogan you need to get the taxpayers to throw their money at you. Um,
I,
I
I
mean,
I agree.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think there's
but
aspects of that. But just there's nothing wrong with just let's flex.
well,
right.
yeah, 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 but it's different when you're creating consumer robotics. So I think,
Sure.
uh, I it would be interesting to see if, like, more people involved could get the cost down without affecting performance,
Mhm.
materially of the plane. But those guys are pretty smart, so, like, that's one of those things that's like you need a PhD just to, like, touch one portion of the design on that thing, type of deal. And I think that is one of the bigger issues that we're facing with the stagnation of technology when it comes to, like, the top end level of things, is
Mm.
it's harder and harder for people to have an, like, a, I say globally, like, the impact on the product as a whole nowadays. People are so specialized and so shoehorned into roles. Like, my job is to make this, the index finger of this robot more effective. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what? Like, you spend all day just messing with the pointer finger. That's your job. And, like, it's affected by all the fingers around it. So you talk to those guys, but really, like, your job is this index finger. And it's like, oh man. Like, and by the way, this guy studied, like, the kinematics of the human finger for 8,000 hours as a PhD student. at some top end university. Is like, okay, I can't. I got kids, I got a wife. I don't have time to do that. And I think kind of maybe deregulating and maybe opening doors and inviting people in and being able to share that rich information that you took all that time to develop, maybe can help with really creating like another explosion. But that involves people communicating effectively, which historically has probably been our like weakest, um, you know, capability. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, to tie a lot of these thoughts in, I, I feel like, have you guys heard of Farmworth, the inventor of the TV, modern TV? Well, maybe not modern. Person who pushed it into, yeah, just a guy on a farm, young child.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, invented like the cathode rube kind of like way that we do this, and I think it's brilliant. It wasn't a lab somewhere. It was this kid who was inspired and perhaps chosen by the university, we want to call it that one. Um, and it changed everything because he invented something that could tell a story, and then your industry, Corey, came from that. This one young kid in the middle of nowhere invented this technology. And I think for our podcast, it was important to be able to share that with the investors that listen, with the CEOs of robotic companies and the leaders in the industry, that breakthroughs and big things can happen from everywhere. It's not just from the 8 years of studying the index finger, um, but big stuff, and it pours into the other conversation about creativity and inspiration and drive and coming through hard things and choosing to do hard things. And that's what we want to do in this podcast is to challenge narrative, to be able to drive narrative in bringing robotics to storytelling and immersive environments.
Well, and I guess more to the point, I guess if we want to steer it back towards like the core aspects of the podcast,
No,
Joel had asked for feedback on the podcast, and I sent him a very verbose text message. I don't know if he shared that with you or not, but
a little bit.
yeah. But kind of like one of the aspects that I initially, and it was the same knee jerk reaction that I always have, and I'm very aware of the level of confidence does not always match the level of actual knowledge when I speak. So like when you hear something from me, it is definitely it's an opinion. And
Spoken like a true anvil.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But I'm gonna say it like it's a
Pontification.
fact because it's how I'm rooted and it's where I stand. Um and I could have more tact, but then it wouldn't be as fun. So
No, absolutely
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're just gonna keep that. But I guess kind of one of the things we talked about was this idea of creativity and this idea like creativity being like the fundamental building block of what makes humans fundamentally human, right?
Yes.
And I had my theological reasons. We were created in the image of creator. That's my belief, right?
Yep.
So that bleeds over into like the things we create. Like we build cars. The car is kind of an interesting system. You've got the physical vehicle itself, like
Yeah.
the engine and the wheels that move you down the road, and then you have this interim system of controls, blinkers and steering wheel and gas pedals that tell those things what to do. But at the end of all that, there's still like this. There's still the human sitting in the driver's seat, and he's manipulating those things. And and that's like when you drive in traffic. It's an engaging experience. I don't know. Joel drives he drives a long way.
Mm.
Um, you're very engaged when you drive on those roads, aren't you?
You should be more engaged.
But there's people around you and they're making decisions. And
Yeah.
to the point of entertainment, like if you can find a way to simulate even a fraction of that creativity, which my initial response was it's not possible. It's not possible to create this simulated creativity within a created object. Um, because it's so complex and it's so unique and it's so like when you're talking with another human being, like the interactions that you have with them are authentic and genuine because there's a level of creativity and they're stitching together information in real time about what they know about you and what they see around them and the nonverbal cues and all of this information and like we as humans we can overcome a lot of things and we have this level of creativity and so it would be interesting to see people's take on creating that level of engagement where like this robot, this non-living thing can come up to you and it can remember how your day went last week. You had a hard day and it can check on you and it can say, "Well, I'm glad you're here for the show. Like here's some, like Danny Robot brought you some popcorn, Dave Robot's getting you a drink, and I'm gonna go up there, I'm gonna play the banjo for you, and all of
Yep.
a sudden like these robots are actually interacting with you and like eh, creating some kind of I don't know, real interaction. And that would be interesting to see. I do think it's a long way off.
Yeah.
But I've said that before, So, uh, and I just think it's hard to replicate. Um, it's hard to replicate that kind of reality when there's not like an actual biological stimulus occurring, and that's just my personal belief. So we'll see.
So I'm going to challenge that with some words from my friend Cynthia.
Okay.
She says it can't be about the robot. But in a lot of our conversations, it's not about the robots. It's to draw that out of the audience,
Okay.
which would be
You're saying
yeah,
use it almost as like a foil or a catalyst.
catalyst.
Yeah, yeah,
I think catalyst is a fantastic word. Like Star Wars, it was a screen. It was 2-dimensional. But when you saw that for the first time, you were transported to Tatooine, or you're
yeah. A galaxy
transported
far, far away. Yeah, yeah.
galaxy far, far away, and that was cool in the moment. But it's when you walk away and you engage with your friends in that experience, like you saw that as a child. Like, what was your experience? And COVID, it was very bad, but as a global like species, we have a one unifying experience that we can pretty much talk about with everyone. Um, and it's those things. I don't not a proponent of having COVID again. But I am a proponent of fostering environments where humans can experience abilities and ways to interact deeper with each other. And a lot of times for humans to do that, it has to be transported into a new environment in order to trick the mind saying, "Oh, I get to experience something new with you."
Yeah, yeah, and I can see that. I guess that goes down to like it's the media it's presented in, right? Like
Absolutely.
robotics is a media,
Yes.
um and it goes back to like I'm I'm slow to adjust, so it's hard for me to be like no, like if I want to watch a show, I'm just gonna go find a screen somewhere, watch a show, and that's gonna be that. I don't know how like robotics in the audience would be like make it more engaging for me or whatever else, and I'm listening to y'all's podcast, and the 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 old man side of me gets grumpy and is like, that's not going to be that's not going to be a thing. But then the I guess the dreamer in me looks around and is like, maybe we can make this occur. Maybe we can make this happen. So
Yeah.
I just from a from a philosophical standpoint, I guess that's maybe not the right word, but the overarching viewpoint is like we have technology that has come a long way
Yep.
mechanically, um, but also just like how it integrates with the other technological advances. Y'all are talking about AI and things like that, and the ability to process inputs real time that are not. Uh, they're not like designed inputs for a system. They're not just simple. Hey, read this temperature and output a signal to match it or whatever.
Yep.
Um, And so it is cool seeing that like synergy between those systems. And I would like to continue kind of monitoring it now because like I said, it wasn't even on my radar. And you started this podcast talking about robotics in entertainment, which I think is off the wall personally.
Mhm.
But I've thought that about a lot of things and I've been wrong. And I'm okay saying that. So I'd like to see new faces and new minds come up and challenge the people like me that are going, that's there's a whole lot of barriers for you to overcome, and I want to see him smash them. I really do, because
Yeah.
I think it would be a unique experience for humans to be able to create something that was creative, and that would be an interesting challenge for me, even on a spiritual level, because then I'd have to sit back and go, whoa, like they did it. Like, what does that actually mean about like um, who we are and our place in this situation, and how does that reflect on like my purpose in this world and things like that. So like I take it way too far every time, but um in terms of just an entertaining media, like it's it's an interesting aspect, an interesting idea to see, because it has come so far, and I'm starting to lean more that somebody's going to make it happen. So
Hmm.
yeah.
That's yeah. That's it's nice to hear you say all that stuff. I'm certainly simpatico um, of I'm the cantankerous old man, but yeah, obviously the hopeful, as we've always said, the glass half full approach, and charting it in a proper course. And I mean, I agree with you of you know that us, just our station and role in the world. I agree with you that we've been created by a creator, and in his image, that iterative feedback loop. I think it only makes sense that we would create things that are creative, um, but to steer it in that proper direction, and have that say. Um, but no, this cool. Cool having your perspective.
Yeah, and so actually that means you kind of lean on the opposite side, where I'm in awe of the way we were created, right? And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
man, like how do you how do you even step up to the plate, like to even take a swing at it? And you're like, hey,
It's certainly subservient.
yeah,
It goes down.
yeah. But at the same time, like I'm like, man, I don't even know how you get a machine to think,
Yeah.
how you get it to make decisions with a human out of the loop or over the loop, or however you want to look at it.
Mm.
But like to
That's certainly just still a smoke screen to me.
and so like that's all cool technology. And like I said before, maybe I just didn't put the pieces together, but now that they've got the mechanics are getting ironed out, you've got like Boston Dynamics with their robots running marathons and doing backflips and
Yeah. Yeah.
climbing ropes and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, you know. So you have these awesome mechanical systems that are able to kind of passively monitor their environment and adapt to changes and external stimuli. So if you can apply that along with these kind of like these systems that are taking information in from people, and there's a profile matrix that it gets filtered through. It's like, hey, you're talking to Sean Connery right now, and all of a sudden, like, you're getting Sean Connery to answer your questions about submarines or whatever. Like, I don't know. So if you can combine the two, where you have this figure that fills a role and communicates, it definitely could be an engaging experience, and I'd like to see it. I just I'm in awe that people are even taking the swing at it, I guess. So I'd like to see how it goes for sure.
I
Yeah.
would love to reenact the Hunt for Red October. Let's
But
do it. That's the aim now.
I don't know if I want to be in a submarine.
Right on.
Well,
Hey,
Joel's building him. It's yeah. We're colliding all sorts of things here.
I have actually built a submarine.
Exactly.
Not
See?
in whole
I would definitely
parts.
not ride on a submarine that you built.
I did not finish the submarine. I did not design the submarine.
I
But
built
thank
an
you for
RC sub. Is that
yeah,
good?
it's pretty cool. Um, I think there's a clarifier in here, and the clarifier is, my son, my wife, myself, we've bonded over rocks before. It's because when we see my son, he's in awe and inspired by this rock that he picked up. And then my wife is like, you know what? I used to collect rocks, and I remember my mom saying, no more rock. The whole story, there's a whole back there. And then I remember, myself collecting rocks and my
Yeah. I mean, I'm
brought earlier.
feeling called out. I have a whole bag of rocks. So
These things, these shared experiences are so important for us, and that robot doesn't have to be nearly as clever or even have it could be a physical robot. It could be kind of even dumb, but it's that experience that you could co-share with somebody to draw that out and to I think the artistry, the engineering, the entertainment professional puts the pieces together in the right environment to be able to draw that out. And I think that's the beauty part. While Cynthia said it's not about the robot,
yeah, yeah.
but the robot is the median, as you
Yeah,
said.
yeah. That also goes back to I'm just so always focused on a mechanical solution, right? And I think that's the mismatch for people like me in this industry, and that's where it takes people like Joel, and that's where it takes people like Corey to bridge the gap in the places, and that's why again, it's when people come against each other with like
Yep.
constructive. Hey, just ask the question. People don't ask the question anymore. Like ask the questions. Like, well, how do we get it to do this? And Corey's like, well, like it's the opposite. Like he says the same thing that I do with the same system behind it, but the outcome is different because he
Yes.
thinks about it different because he's got a different perspective. He's got a different background. So I guess if anything, my encouragement is for people to feel encouraged that they can still have a difference, even though it seems like everything is so lofty and so advanced and so whatever. Like just a different perspective sometimes. It's all that's needed to drive change into you could be a farmer in the middle of wherever and create something game
Yeah, yeah,
changing for the whole world. So
absolutely. So I think this might be a good time
Yeah.
to do an outro.
Yeah. We're a little bit past the hour mark, I believe.
Well, Winston, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
thank you guys. It was good.
Yeah, we are actively engaging with the robotics community, investors, and entrepreneurs, and early starters trying to put these technologies into the immersive environments, into the entertainment experiences. But it's important for us all to be grounded and rooted in like where does creativity come from? Where do advancement come from? It's not all always in a lab or a $1 billion robot company. Sometimes it's
Sometimes it's a simple guy asking why or how.
yeah, why does robots not have tails?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? And something comes from that questioning. And I think that should be exciting for everyone. That 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 it is not a creativity and invention is not purely created in a structured environment. You can't just pour money and make it happen sometimes. So, well, thank you so much for your time
Yeah. Thank you
coming out
guys.
here.